My name is Caroline Vance. I'm 40 years old. To muster the courage to finally meet the digital soulmate I had known for a year through an anonymous elite corporate forum, the Apex Network, I had to endure an agonizing, grueling metamorphosis. I had transformed from a 200-pound woman, utterly broken and exhausted by post-divorce depression, into a fiercely disciplined, elegant, and sharp-witted chief operating officer in Chicago, weighing a sleek 120 pounds. Yet, on the very eve of our highly anticipated meeting at the Drake Hotel, I inadvertently scrolled past an anonymous post on the forum that made my blood run cold. Transferring ownership of a digital soulmate. Preparing for an offline meetup. We've been deep in conversation for over a year. She possesses a razor-sharp intellect, a warm voice, and a profound understanding of the stock market and contemporary art. If anyone is interested in taking over, I will hand over this Telegram account. Direct message me. Someone, driven by morbid curiosity, commented, "If she is such a perfect confidant, why on earth would you want to pass her off?" The original poster replied without a shred of empathy, "I hired a private investigator to dig up her real identity. She's divorced, completely let herself go, and is now an obese, frumpy, middle-aged woman dressed like a suburban soccer mom. I am a managing partner at an investment fund. I need to maintain my image and prestige. A woman like that, no matter how brilliant her mind, would completely ruin my reputation." Beneath that cruel revelation, a cascade of cliché, cynical banter flowed from the arrogant men of Silicon Valley and Wall Street. Hearing the initial description, I was about to ask for her number. But the moment I saw suburban soccer mom, I lost my appetite completely. Your taste is too eccentric for anyone to shoulder, man. Just keep her as a virtual pet for chat, haha. Amidst the chorus of mockery, only one single account replied, with absolute brevity. DM sent. I sat paralyzed, staring at the original poster's avatar. It was a photograph of an Audemars Piguet watch resting casually on the steering wheel of a Porsche 911. It was the exact same photograph my online confidant had sent me during a lazy afternoon stuck in traffic on Michigan Avenue. And the date the post was published? 3 months ago. I sat in a stunned, hollow silence before the glowing screen of my laptop in my downtown Chicago apartment. The Americano in my hands had grown ice cold, much like the sudden chill creeping through my veins. A sudden realization washed over me. 3 months ago, Julian Hayes had changed drastically. At the time, he had suddenly become distant, using the excuse that his venture capital VC fund was preparing to inject capital into a unicorn startup. He claimed his relentless flight schedule between Chicago and San Francisco left him no time for our nightly conversations. He had even subtly implied that we should stop talking, stating he didn't want to disrupt each other's lives. I had rationalized it. At 40 years old, the overwhelming pressure and chaotic busyness of the corporate battlefield were a given. I had been patient, utilizing the deep empathy of a seasoned woman to comfort and anchor him. Only after my unwavering support did he reluctantly agree to keep in touch. From that point on, he abruptly suggested we switch to Telegram, citing its higher security features. His excuse was that his old messaging app was cluttered with chaotic threads from various partners. Trusting him, I connected with his newly created account. Following that transition, he remained somewhat aloof for a short period, and his writing style shifted noticeably. Gone was the sharp, sometimes arrogant banter. In its place was a deeply grounded, calm, and profoundly sophisticated tone. It took time, but eventually our conversations deepened, becoming more intimately bonded than ever before. I simply assumed that a man in his 40s, weathered by the exhaustion of the boardroom, was naturally settling into a quieter, more reflective state of mind. I never suspected the truth. I cast my eyes down to my phone. The new account, bearing an avatar of an amber glass of bourbon, had just sent a message. Caroline, the Chicago wind is biting cold lately. Please take care of your health. I just ordered a week's worth of premium organic soup to be delivered to your office. Remember to eat lunch on time. Don't let the work consume you. I am genuinely looking forward to the Industry Association Gala next month to finally meet you. Truthfully, even at my age, I find my heart beating a little faster. Are you looking forward to it? I lowered my gaze, my perfectly manicured finger freezing, suspended above the screen. If Julian had abandoned me 3 months ago, who was the warm, intensely caring man I was about to meet? When Sarah, my closest friend and the brilliant HR director of my company, stormed into my office, she slammed the heavy mahogany door shut, her face flushed crimson with rage. Caroline, tell me you and Julian Hayes, that bastard CEO over at Apex Partners, have completely cut ties. What's wrong? I asked, my brow furrowing in confusion. She forcefully shoved her iPad across my desk. Read it yourself. My husband was playing golf with a group of those VC bros at the Suburban club. He managed to sneak a screenshot of their private Discord server. On the screen, someone had asked Julian, "Hey Julian, haven't heard you mention that mysterious online muse of yours lately." What gives? Julian's reply was clinical and callous. Cut ties with her ages ago. Damn, really? You used to brag about how psychologically astute and understanding she was, not to mention her killer instinct for the stock market. Why the sudden drop? In the past, hearing her smooth voice over the phone and witnessing her razor-sharp logic, I pictured this stunning intellectual beauty. Then, she accidentally sent the wrong report file one night, leaking her company's name. I had a PI run a background check. The result? She's a woman pushing 40, divorced, spends her life buried in work, weighs nearly 200 pounds, and dresses as sloppily as a Midwestern auntie. I was absolutely disgusted. You guys know my business relies on prestige. Whenever I attend events, I need a gorgeous woman by my side. Looking at her ID photo made me want to throw up. I wanted to bolt immediately. Another voice chimed in. Did she actually let you go? Women at that age, post-divorce, usually cling like leeches once they find a good target. Julian responded with indifferent cruelty. I found a way to transfer the Telegram account to some other guy. After all, she hadn't met me in real life yet. Let him inherit the mess. Saves me the headache. The sycophants below erupted in applause. Brilliant. Only you could come up with a digital asset transfer for a woman. Thank God you did your due diligence, man. Dragging a frumpy auntie to a Silicon Valley gala would have destroyed your reputation. Serves her right trying to find a prince online at her age. Julian continued, basking in the validation. I've got a new target anyway. The new PR director at our partner firm. Young, just turned 25, flawless looks, hot as a Victoria's Secret model. He attached a photo. It was a picture of a vibrant, radiant blonde girl wearing a skin-tight bodycon dress, sporting heavy influencer-style makeup. She was undeniably beautiful, radiating the effortless, intoxicating vitality of youth. I immediately recognized her. Alyssa Monroe, a rising star in the PR circle recently. Sarah slammed her fist onto the polished surface of my desk. Julian is absolute corporate trash. Caroline, you shared the immense weight of his stress for an entire year. You helped him untangle countless brutal acquisitions, and he treated you like a depreciating asset to be liquidated. That Alyssa girl has nothing but youth. She's completely hollow. How can she even compare to you? Sarah took a deep breath, her eyes blazing with fierce loyalty. Caroline, the annual industry gala at Navy Pier is next month. You must attend. You need to make that bastard open his eyes and see exactly what he threw away. Scanning the rest of the Discord chat, I noticed only one person had spoken up to defend me. But didn't that woman help you navigate that massive PR crisis earlier this year? Isn't it a bit harsh to treat her like that? Julian's reply was icy. I'm a man. I value aesthetics. The mere thought of spending the night whispering sweet nothings to a flabby, frumpy woman gives me goosebumps. If she wanted to be loved, she should have learned some self-control. That evening, as I left my towering glass office building, I walked slowly down the magnificent mile. The glow of the street lamps reflected against the pristine glass of a high-end luxury boutique. I stopped. I looked at the woman staring back at me from the glass. A slender, striking silhouette draped in a classic beige Burberry trench coat. My hair was styled in voluminous, luxurious waves. My facial features were sharp, exuding the deep, magnetic aura and undeniable gravitas of a highly successful woman. There was absolutely no trace left of the 200-pound frumpy auntie. The truth was, prior to my divorce, I had been an attractive, captivating woman. But the catastrophic collapse of my marriage, combined with the sleepless nights spent resurrecting a failing company from the brink of bankruptcy, had drained the life from me. Under immense stress, I developed an eating disorder. My weight spiraled completely out of control, my cholesterol skyrocketed, and my physical appearance withered. In the eyes of shallow, status-obsessed men like Julian, I was nothing more than scrap metal. During those dark days, through those anonymous chat logs, Julian had been my listener. He had life experience and the sharp intuition of a successful man. He had consoled me when I faced brutal betrayals from corporate partners. He had stayed awake with me to review the most grueling M&A contracts. I once asked him, my fingers trembling over the keyboard, what if, in real life, I am no longer young nor beautiful? What if I carry many scars from life? He replied instantly, your soul is the most beautiful thing I have ever encountered. For people as seasoned as we are, physical appearance is merely a shell. I long to meet you, to share a glass of Napa Valley Cabernet with you. I had believed in that fabricated maturity. But my transformation wasn't solely for him. It was triggered by a glaring red medical report from my private physician. I was diagnosed with prediabetes and severe hypertension. I realized, with terrifying clarity, that I was slowly killing myself. I threw myself into a draconian regimen. I took up advanced Pilates, hired a ruthless personal trainer, and adhered strictly to a Mediterranean diet. The excruciating muscle aches, the sleepless nights of gnawing hunger, the moments I wanted to collapse on the gym floor in tears. I gritted my teeth and endured every second of it. I wanted to reclaim my dignity, my health, and my life. Over the course of a year, I shed nearly 90 pounds. I reclaimed my physique, revolutionized my wardrobe, and ascended to the position of Chief Operating Officer. I began receiving lingering looks of admiration and exclusive dinner invitations from Chicago's most elite executives. I was fully prepared to meet Julian at the gala. But it turned out every honeyed word he had ever typed was drenched in hypocrisy. On LinkedIn and Instagram, Alyssa was relentlessly updating her grid. She checked in from the first-class cabin on a flight to Paris, flashing matching Rolex watches while resting her head on the shoulder of a man whose face was cropped out. But the distinctive custom-made cufflinks gave him away immediately. Julian Hayes. Rumors that Julian was deeply involved with the young PR director spread like wildfire through the Chicago business elite. He spared no expense, buying her extravagant luxury items and leveraging his vast network to pave the way for her rapid promotion. In a shared Slack channel for executives, which I monitored using a secondary alias, someone teased Julian. Julian found himself a very fresh rose. Congratulations, man. Compared to that auntie from the anonymous forum you were dealing with, this is a massive upgrade. Alyssa, who had been added to the exclusive group by Julian, chimed in with sickeningly sweet faux innocence. What auntie are we talking about? The group eagerly piled on, recounting the exaggerated tale of how Julian was catfished by a fat, desperate woman online. Alyssa laughed, dropping a voice note into the chat. Oh, she was probably just deeply insecure. Middle-aged women who let themselves go often try to use an intellectual tone to trap successful men online. I don't blame Julian for running away. Poor thing. Julian replied, "Let's drop the past. Thinking about it ruins my mood. I'm just lucky I have you." I sat in my penthouse, watching the thread unfold, a cold, predatory smile curving on my lips. I logged out of my alias, switched to my official, verified corporate account, and joined the channel. The system notification pinged loudly for everyone in the group. Caroline Vance, COO of Horizon Logistics, has joined the channel. The entire Slack channel went dead silent. Everyone in that chat knew exactly who I was in the corporate arena, the Iron Lady, who had just ruthlessly executed the largest logistics merger of the quarter. A few agonizing minutes later, Alyssa sent a saccharine message, attempting to feign familiarity. "Hello, Caroline. I've heard so much about you. I admire you endlessly. Will you be attending the gala next month?" She undoubtedly still pictured me as an aging, pathetic, sloppy woman. She wanted to use me as a drab background to highlight her own youthful brilliance. I typed a single word, decisive and freezing cold. Yes. Just as I was about to shut my laptop and head to sleep, my current confidant, the man using Julian's old account, sent a message. "Caroline, I just won an auction for a 19th century vintage map of Chicago. I think it perfectly complements the aesthetic of your office. When we meet next month, I'll bring it as a gift. Why are you still awake? Is something on your mind?" I frowned, staring at the screen. This man had bought or taken over Julian's account, and he was playing the role of the soulmate flawlessly. His calmness, his refinement, and his emotional maturity were completely unlike that of a standard cyber scammer. For the past 3 months, he was the one reminding me to take my stomach medication, sending me classic jazz vinyl tracks to help me sleep, and offering brutally sharp, brilliant insights into my company's corporate strategy. What did a man like this want with the fat, frumpy auntie he had read about in Julian's private messages? Without hesitation, I dug up a photo of myself from exactly 1 year ago. A 200-pound woman, exhausted, wearing a crumpled, oversized t-shirt, her eyes surrounded by deep, dark circles of depression. I hit send. This is what I look like. If you feel disgusted or lose your appetite, we can stop right now. I don't want to waste either of our time. At my age, I don't have the luxury for childish games. The other side went completely silent for a full minute. Then he replied, "A woman who has had to shoulder that much pressure, who has walked through so many storms, naturally becomes exhausted. I don't feel disgusted, Caroline. I see someone incredibly resilient. But you must prioritize your health, not for the sake of your appearance, but for yourself." I was stunned. Was this man insane? Or was he perhaps a failed middle-aged man himself, in real life, seeking mutual pity? "Then, what do you look like?" I asked bluntly. I don't trust men who hide their faces. He sent over 3 photographs. They weren't filtered selfies. They were candid, high-resolution shots taken from a distance. The man in the photos was wearing a bespoke, hand-tailored Tom Ford suit. He had broad shoulders and a lean waist. His posture was commanding and authoritative. His facial features were chiseled, and his deep-set eyes carried the intense, seasoned gravity and power of a man who commanded empires. He was no younger than 38, but he exuded the lethal, intoxicating charm of true maturity. I scoffed. Whose Forbes magazine cover is he using to scam me? I don't make a habit of taking photos. My assistant took these while I was chairing a board meeting. Are you disappointed? Not at all, I typed back. You look very distinguished. I'll see you next month at the Drake. Let's see how he plans to cover up his lies when we meet face to face. It was a Friday afternoon in the opulent VIP lounge of the Drake Hotel. My phone vibrated. Caroline, I am waiting in the lounge area. I'm wearing a charcoal gray suit, and I brought a bouquet of white orchids. My heart sank slightly. This scammer even knew my favorite flower, white orchids. Elegant, exorbitantly expensive, yet understated. I decided that even if he turned out to be a perfectly ordinary man, I would remain courteous and maintain a platonic friendship. After all, for the past 3 months, he had genuinely provided me with a profound sense of mental peace. I adjusted the lapels of my trench coat and stepped into the lounge. From a distance, I immediately spotted the man in the charcoal suit, cradling a sophisticated arrangement of orchids. He was tall, his posture impeccably straight, blending flawlessly into the classic aristocratic atmosphere of the hotel. As he turned to scan the room, my pupils dilated in sheer shock. The man was exactly the man from the photos. In fact, in person, his calm, commanding aura was 100 times more captivating. He hadn't used fake photos at all. Several young women walking past cast lingering, admiring glances in his direction. I walked up to him, my expression a complex mix of emotions. Excuse me. He furrowed his brow, looking at me with polite but distinct distance. Hello. Can I help you? I held up my phone, showing the telegram screen. You're waiting for someone, right? His tone was courteous but entirely dismissive. I am waiting for someone very important. I apologize, but I cannot converse right now. I was floored. Ever since I regained my physique and aura, it was incredibly rare for any man to look at me with such absolute, flat disinterest. I let out a soft sigh and smiled. You are the man who took over the Telegram account. I am Caroline. The man, who had been maintaining a fortress of icy composure, suddenly froze. His eyes swept over me from my cascading waves of hair to the form-fitting black silk dress beneath my coat before finally locking onto my face. His eyes widened so far they practically left his head. You? Caroline? That's impossible. Weren't you? He stammered, his unshakable executive poise instantly crumbling into endearing panic. Weren't I fat, old, and sloppy? I smiled softly, explaining. I fought hard to change, for my own health, to battle prediabetes and high blood pressure. Unless you have a peculiar fetish for women who are physically suffering. The fiercely composed billionaire suddenly flushed red with embarrassment, a sight incredibly rare for a man of power in the financial world. No, I meant, before, I saw you as incredibly resilient, and I deeply admired that. As for now, you are breathtaking, so beautiful that I didn't dare recognize you. I was just taken off guard. He carefully handed me the white orchids. A pure, clean fragrance enveloped us. I burst out laughing, the most genuine, unburdened laugh I had experienced in months. Didn't you promise to buy me a glass of Napa Valley Cabernet? Daniel. Daniel Sterling, in reality, was an exquisitely refined, mature, and extraordinarily chivalrous man. He was the founding director of a boutique investment fund, operating entirely under the radar, yet wielding immense financial power. During our light dinner at the Drake's restaurant before the gala, he pulled out my chair, poured my wine, and maintained eye contact filled with profound respect, entirely devoid of the predatory sleaze so common in our circles. When it was time, he escorted me to Navy Pier. The grand ballroom was ablaze with the light of crystal chandeliers, hosting the absolute elite of Chicago's corporate world. As we approached the massive doors, I could already hear the venomous whispers echoing from a corner. Has Caroline from Horizon Logistics not arrived yet? I heard her husband cheated on her, she ballooned in weight, and got hospitalized from stress. There's no way she has the guts to show her face in a glamorous place like this. Alyssa was clinging tightly to Julian's arm, covering her mouth as she giggled. If a woman doesn't know how to maintain her looks, how can she expect to keep a man? I heard she has a terribly bitter, unlikable personality, too. Just then, a female banquet server, slightly heavy-set, with her hair tied up in a messy bun, walked by, carrying a tray of champagne. Alyssa's group immediately exchanged mocking glances. Is that Caroline? Exactly as the rumors described. Ha ha. The poor server walked past, looking bewildered. The group erupted into laughter. Julian took a sip of his champagne, a cruel half-smirk plastered across his face. At that exact moment, I slipped my arm through Daniel's and pushed open the massive glass doors. The entire room seemed to freeze. Every single pair of eyes in the vicinity snapped toward me. The exquisitely tailored black silk Tom Ford gown hugged the curves of a mature, powerful woman. The overwhelming, commanding aura of a female COO made the air in the room grow thin. The combination of intense life experience and deep, elegant sensuality created an absolutely suffocating allure. A partner CEO stopped mid-sentence, his wineglass frozen in the air. Alyssa, who was leaning against Julian's chest, instantly stiffened, the sneer dying completely on her lips. And Julian. Julian stared at me, his eyes dilated to their absolute limits, refusing to believe his own vision. Excuse me, everyone, I smiled gracefully, my voice cutting through the silence. I am Caroline Vance. Traffic was a bit heavy. I apologize for being late. The entire corner of the gala erupted in whispers. Caroline? Is that Director Vance? Good God, who started the rumor that she was fat? That kind of beauty and presence completely obliterates these new influencer models. I swept a bored, indifferent glance over Julian. His face was entirely drained of blood, turning a sickly pale green. His Adam's apple bobbed violently. Unconsciously, he aggressively yanked his arm out of Alyssa's tight grip. His eyes were filled with shock, immediately replaced by a desperate, burning hunger. I was too familiar with that look. It was the gaze of a shallow creature who only calculated a woman's worth by her external packaging. But beneath that lust, there was a creeping, agonizing realization of profound regret, the sickening feeling of realizing you threw away a winning lottery ticket. Caro. Line? Julian choked out, his voice hoarse. I completely ignored him, walking arm in arm with Daniel toward the VIP tables. Various business partners immediately swarmed us, offering toasts and showering me with compliments. Director Vance, you look absolutely radiant lately. Did you just return from a wellness retreat in Switzerland? One executive asked, half joking. I smiled, raising my glass. Not at all. I simply threw all the toxic waste out of my life, trained like a soldier, and learned to cherish myself. Beauty naturally follows. My gaze flicked toward Julian. His face shifted from white to a deep, embarrassed purple. Alyssa, utterly unwilling to be eclipsed, stomped over. She pushed her chest out, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Caroline, it's so easy to achieve artificial beauty with medical interventions, but natural beauty, like our youth, is much harder. Could you share the name of the clinic where you get your Botox? I let out a soft, breathy laugh, a smile filled with the piercing, lethal grace of a woman who has survived wars. Alyssa, your youth is something simply handed to you by time. My maturity is something I had to buy with my own sweat, tears, and absolute ruthlessness in the corporate world. You are young. I suggest you focus on honing your professional skills. A pretty face won't keep terrible men around forever. Alyssa's face burned a furious red with humiliation. Soft chuckles of agreement rippled through the surrounding crowd. Julian did absolutely nothing to defend her. His eyes were glued to me, looking like a beggar who had just watched his most precious diamond be handed over to a king. Throughout the gala, Julian desperately sought any opportunity to approach me. Caroline, how have you been? There are so many misunderstandings I want to explain. These past few months, I've been so overwhelmed with work. Alyssa stood behind him, her eyes red and welling with tears from being completely ignored. Julian, you promised to get me lobster, she whined, stomping her foot. Go get it yourself. Do you not have hands? Julian snapped viciously. I found the entire theatrical display utterly pathetic. Setting down my wine glass, I turned to Daniel. Let's go home. The moment we stepped out into the grand lobby, Julian came sprinting after us. Caroline, let me take you home. My car is parked right out front. Right on cue, Daniel's sleek, black Porsche Panamera glided silently to a halt in front of us. Daniel stepped out, exuding quiet authority, and opened an umbrella to shield me from the night air. I looked at Julian with dead eyes. My partner has arrived. Thank you, Julian. Daniel placed a warm, possessive hand on the small of my back and opened the car door. Julian stood rooted to the pavement in the freezing Chicago wind, his face darkening with absolute despair. Who was that man? Daniel's deep, resonant voice broke the quiet sanctuary of the Porsche. A partner I used to know online. He's completely irrelevant, I replied, resting my head against the plush leather seat. Daniel seemed to exhale a breath he had been holding. He reached into the back seat and retrieved a distinctive velvet robin's egg blue box, a vintage pearl brooch from Tiffany's. I saw it at an auction and felt it perfectly matched your aura. It was breathtakingly expensive. The craftsmanship radiated classic, timeless elegance. Daniel, this is far too valuable. I cannot accept it. Daniel hesitated, a flicker of genuine vulnerability crossing his eyes. Did our meeting today disappoint you? Are you planning to stop seeing me? If I did anything wrong, I can fix it. Looking at the raw sincerity in the eyes of a man who commanded hundreds of millions of dollars, I smiled softly and accepted the box. Thank you. Perhaps, at this stage in my life, I owed myself the chance to finally accept true kindness. In the weeks that followed, Julian lost his mind. He abandoned Alyssa completely and began pursuing me with the fervor of a madman. Ecuadorian roses and extravagant gifts flooded the reception of Horizon Logistics. He manufactured excuses to attend board meetings he had no business being at, aggressively fighting for the seat next to mine. In stark contrast to his former cold arrogance, he was now pathetic. One afternoon, I picked up the Hermes box he had just placed on my desk and dropped it directly into the trash can, right in front of my staff. Julian's face twisted. "Caroline, have I not treated you well enough? Whatever Daniel can give you, I can double it." Disgust rose to the back of my throat. I looked at him, my voice colder than ice. "Julian, the man I shared those stressful nights with died the moment you handed that account over to someone else. In my eyes, you are now nothing but a shallow, superficial, and incredibly cheap man. Please, never bother me again." But his delusion was persistent. When I went to the country club in suburban Illinois to decompress with some golf over the weekend, Julian tracked me down. He didn't even know how to play golf. His entire life consisted of yacht parties. "Caroline, mind showing me the basics?" he said playfully, stepping uncomfortably close, reaching out to touch my hand as I gripped my 7-iron. My patience violently snapped. I planted my feet, shifted my weight, and swung the iron with lethal precision and maximum force. The golf ball shot off the tee with a deafening crack, whistling less than an inch from his ear, tearing through the air. Julian screamed, stumbling backward in terror, collapsing flat on his back onto the manicured grass. I walked over slowly. I lowered the club, resting the cold steel head lightly against his chest, staring down at him with eyes like daggers. "If you ever follow me again, I will use every ounce of power and leverage I possess to blackball your fund from the next development project. Do not test the limits of a woman." Yet instead of anger, a sick, crazed obsession flared in Julian's eyes. The man was psychologically broken. A sudden, violent thunderstorm broke out, just as I exited a conference center in downtown Chicago. I stood trapped beneath the awning, watching the rain hammer the pavement. A black umbrella opened over my head. Julian stood there, a smug, triumphant smile on his face. "Let me drive you home," I glared at him. A few yards away, another umbrella hurriedly pushed through the storm. Daniel emerged from the heavy rain, his eyes lighting up the moment he saw me, only to instantly darken with lethal intent when he spotted Julian. "Daniel!" I called out. I stepped decisively out from under Julian's umbrella and ran straight toward Daniel. Daniel immediately stripped off his suit jacket, wrapping it tightly around my shoulders to block the biting wind. We huddled under his umbrella, walking toward the parking garage, entirely ignoring Julian's dark, venomous stare burning holes into our backs. Sitting inside the car, Daniel remained silent for a very long time. The heavy rain drummed rhythmically against the glass. "Caroline," Daniel suddenly spoke, his voice thick with emotion. "There is something I must confess to you. I am not the man who loved you online during that first year. I replaced someone else. I know it makes me a coward, but I refuse to start this relationship with a lie." Looking at the tense, rigid profile of this powerful man, I smiled gently. "I know." Daniel froze entirely. "You. Since when did you know?" Since the moment the conversations gained depth and absolute sincerity. A superficial man like Julian could never possess that kind of quiet stillness. He lowered his eyes, a bittersweet smile touching his lips. "But this isn't the first time I've known you, Caroline." Daniel unlocked his phone and handed it to me. On the screen was a photograph. It was a picture from a corporate retreat in New York 8 years ago. In the corner of the frame stood a painfully thin, timid junior analyst, looking entirely out of place. My eyes widened in shock. "That was you?" Daniel nodded. "That year I was fresh out of college, completely lost, and being crushed alive by corporate pressure. You were the one who stepped up to protect me. You patiently guided me through every impossible financial report. Years later, when you went through your divorce, when you were suffering and falling apart, I stood in the distance and watched. I was completely helpless because I was a nobody. I didn't have the right or the power to protect you. After that, I struck out on my own. I built my own fund. When I accidentally saw Julian dropping those disgusting, mocking comments about you in that private Discord server and bragging about throwing your account away like trash, I couldn't bear it. I begged to take over that account because I wanted to be by your side. I wanted to protect you. I fell in love with your fierce resilience and brilliant mind 8 years ago, Caroline. I didn't wait until you transformed into this stunning woman to love you. If you feel manipulated, and if you want to walk away right now, I will respect it. I looked deeply into the eyes of the man beside me. In a corporate world overflowing with ruthless machinations and deceit, a silent, devoted love that had endured for nearly a decade was priceless. I reached out and placed my hand over his, which was gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. Walk away? Why would I do that? Didn't you promise you would walk with me through everything? Daniel's eyes ignited. He leaned across the console and pulled me into a fierce, desperate embrace, his arms serving as an unshakable, warm fortress against the world. A few days later, Alyssa ambushed me in the underground parking garage of my office. She looked entirely haggard. Her heavy makeup was smeared, and her arrogant influencer facade was completely gone. Caroline, you are despicable. You seduced Julian away from me. I laughed out loud. Are you mentally deficient? He has been stalking me. Do you even know that he used to call you fat, old, and a suburban auntie? That's why he threw you away. He despises you, she screamed, desperately trying to inflict any emotional damage she could. I calmly rebuttoned my coat. So what? He threw me away when I was at my absolute worst, and now he's throwing you away because you've lost your value as his little accessory. Men like him are garbage, and I don't make a habit of digging through the trash. As for you, if you have even a shred of self-respect left, walk away on your own. Alyssa stood frozen in shock, paralyzed by reality. I heard later that she threw a massive, hysterical tantrum at the Apex Partners office, slapped Julian across the face in front of the board, and was immediately terminated. Julian's desperation reached a boiling point. That Tuesday, I was on site inspecting the construction of a massive new commercial plaza project in the West Loop. Daniel texted me, "I'm waiting in the parking lot. Let's grab lunch soon." I was reading his message, walking past an active scaffolding zone, when a horrific sound of twisting, groaning metal echoed above me. A massive section of steel scaffolding had come loose from its bolts and was plummeting directly toward where I stood. Everything happened in a fraction of a second. A violent, massive force slammed into my side, launching me out of the drop zone. I crashed hard onto the concrete floor, my palms scraping open and bleeding. A deafening crash shook the ground. I spun around. Julian lay crumpled amidst the shattered concrete and twisted metal. A massive steel beam had crushed his shoulder and back. Blood poured out rapidly, instantly soaking his bespoke dress shirt a horrifying crimson. "Julian!" I screamed, scrambling toward him in panic. His eyes were tightly shut, his breathing was dangerously shallow. Dust choked the air. Ambulance sirens soon wailed through the canyon of skyscrapers, rushing him away. At Northwestern Memorial Hospital, I met Julian's aunt, a veteran managing director who had flown in on a private jet from Manhattan. Looking incredibly exhausted, she finally told me the truth about his past. He was a child raised in a freezing, emotionally barren East Coast billionaire family, where both parents openly kept mistresses. He grew up despising betrayal, swearing he would never become like his father. But eventually, the toxic environment of high finance swallowed him whole. He became an exact replica of the man he hated, superficial, using money to buy temporary amusement, utterly terrified of trusting genuine affection. He threw himself into death's path to save you, Caroline. That means he truly loved you with his very life. You were the only person who ever managed to reach the hidden, bruised corners of his soul, she said, gently wiping away a tear. When Julian finally woke up, his head and shoulder were heavily wrapped in thick white bandages. He looked like a ghost. "Thank you for saving my life," I said softly, standing at the foot of his hospital bed. He stared up at the sterile ceiling, a tragic, broken smile pulling at his dry lips. "I just had a dream, Caroline. I dreamed that I never gave that account away. We met. You were still that chubby, exhausted woman, beaten down by the world. But we were so incredibly at peace. We got married, and we moved out to a quiet house in the suburbs. Facing death, I finally realized that what I fell in love with was your soul. I spent my entire life searching for a woman whose spirit resonated with mine. But when you finally appeared, my own vanity and stupidity strangled it to death with my bare hands. I understood too late. I am so sorry, Caroline." I stood in heavy silence, watching this former titan of industry, a man who had once mocked my existence, cry tears of pure, absolute regret. "Julian, I will forever be grateful that you saved my life. But between us, everything died the day you chose to throw away that connection." I turned my back and walked out. From behind the closed door of the hospital room, the muffled, agonizing sobs of a 40-year-old man echoed down the hall. He had all the money and power in the world, but he had permanently lost the only person who had ever truly understood him. Half a year later, Julian resigned as CEO of Apex Partners. He liquidated his shares and vanished to a secluded vineyard in the south of France to heal his body and his mind. Before he boarded his flight, he sent me one final email. "I wish you a lifetime of peace. I have learned the most expensive lesson of my life." I stood on the sprawling balcony of my Chicago penthouse, a glass of wine in hand, watching the glittering lights of the magnificent city reflect off the dark waters of Lake Michigan. Daniel's strong, solid arms wrapped around my waist from behind. He rested his chin gently on my shoulder. "Are you finished with work? Come eat, darling. I just finished grilling that salmon you love." I smiled softly, leaning my head back against his chest, listening to the steady, unshakable rhythm of his heart. At an age where we have already walked through half of our lives, having tasted the bitterest betrayals and the sweetest victories of both the corporate world and human relationships, physical beauty and loud, theatrical promises are no longer what matter. What a 40-year-old woman truly needs is a man who understands her, who respects her, and who is willing to hold her hand as they walk steadily through the hurricanes of life. A sense of peace, simple, profound, and eternal.